time to talk about Morbius. Hi everybody, I'm Belle. Welcome back to our channel, Joss and Belle, where we cover everything pop culture. Today I'm talking about the latest Marvel movie, Morbius. Morbius came out April 1st, starring Jared Leto as Dr. Michael Morbius. And I wish I could stop right there, because that's as good as it gets. I'm a huge MCU fan, and also a huge fan of vampires because, of course. So when the trailer dropped, I was super excited for this movie. It had the scary factor, it had great casting. It was released by Columbia Pictures, which means it has a little different spin, a different tone than a lot of the MCU movies. I didn't look for spoilers ahead of time, but I did see a few headlines where the reviews were not great. I don't usually agree with professional movie reviewer critiques. I'm the mass audience that most movies are targeted towards. I love bad movies. So when I saw Morbius had gotten bad reviews, I was like, whatever, I took it with a grain of salt. I was sure I was going to like this movie anyways. Oh boy, I was wrong. Just a heads up, there are spoilers in this review. Let's start with the positive. The casting was really strong. Jared Leto performed phenomenally. The doctor, father figure in his life was really strong. His best friend did a great job acting. The female doctor did great. And that's pretty much the only positive that I have. These poor actors were acting their heart out, doing their best with really cheesy, stunted dialogue, pacing that was somehow rushed and awkward at the same time. For an origin movie, we actually didn't get that much origin. There was one short flashback that showed Dr. Morbius's relationship with his best friend. I felt like I needed to see more of that relationship developed to be really invested when Morbius had to kill his best friend. Similarly, the romance was really rushed and awkward. It felt like they threw it in there for absolutely no reason. You have these really close colleagues who suddenly find out that one of them is a vampire because of an experiment went wrong, and your first reaction is to make out. I just don't think that's believable. First of all, he thought he was dying this whole time, so he wouldn't have even let himself love this woman, and vice versa. She wouldn't have invested emotionally in him if she thought he was gonna die. And then once they find out that he's a vampire and he literally has to drink blood to survive, why is their first reaction to kiss? It makes no sense. There's a few other priorities they need to straighten out before we can get to that. One thing I was glad to see was when the female doctor came back to life after Michael Morbius drank her blood, sitting in the theater, already stewing, ready to come on this review being like, oh my gosh, what was the point of that character? Why did she die? And then of course, in those final scenes of the movie, you see her eyes pop open and yay, she's back. So I was really glad about that. That did keep me hooked. It's kind of the only thing that makes me want to see a sequel. So the biggest problem I had with this movie was CGI. The casting was great and the actors' performances were really strong. So to have their faces covered in this really excessive, unrealistic CGI or animation, I thought really did a disservice to the actors and their performances. I think if they had really pared down that CGI over the face, maybe have just done the teeth instead of that whole vampire face transformation, I really would have connected more with the characters' emotional dilemmas and pain and everything that they were going through as they transformed into vampires. I also felt like in some places, the CGI talked down to me as an audience member in a way. Film watchers, especially Marvel lovers, are really clever. They're watching every scene really carefully. We understand what's happening on a supernatural level without all this chaotic visual extra. There were some scenes where there was just so much animation and CGI crossing the screen that I couldn't even really follow the character's path. It's a movie about vampires. I know they move really fast. I know how echolocation works. I don't need to see it visually on the screen to understand that's what's happening. I feel like they could have relied a lot more just on audio and just the audience's intelligence. To be fair, I've never read the comics, so maybe it was a reference to how movement looks in the comic books, using lines and streaks to represent movement and vibration. I don't know. Am I being generous? If you've read the comics, let me know in the comments below if that was really a reference. But I think for a movie, it was just unnecessary. We also have to talk about the end credit scene, of course. I saw a lot of reviews where people were really bothered by that crossover, and I thought the dialogue in the end was really cheesy. But my bar is set really low because as soon as they started messing with time and Endgame and with the multiverse and Loki, I kind of knew these dumb crossovers would happen as they try to rewrite things, fix timeline errors, and just make everything fit into one universe. So it wasn't that big a deal to me. Overall, I would give Morbius 2.5 stars out of 5. Was not a hit for me. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and we'll see you next week.